You think you know snakes? Those cold, slimy creatures slithering through the grass. You think their idea of revenge is just a bite, injecting venom into your veins. You're wrong. Dead wrong. Let's step into the eyes of the only survivor from that stormy night, Do Chang'en. Let's uncover the truth behind how the Do Manor turned into a living hell overnight. What you learn may shatter everything you thought you knew about snakes. The rain poured down in sheets, each drop like a stone smashing against the flagstones, splashing up muddy water that streamed together into blood-red rivulets. You were curled up in a corner of the main hall, clutching your mother's cold, rigid corpse. The icy chill soaked through your hemp robe, digging into your bones. The air was thick with the stench of blood, cloying and suffocating, blended with the earthy musk and the acrid tang unique to snakes. Your mother's face was frozen in pure terror, eyes wide open, staring blankly at the mass of snakes coiled across the rafters above. Their cold, unblinking eyes stabbed into your back like needles. Your father, Do Mingyuan, sat slumped just a few steps away. His once luxurious robe was torn to shreds, smeared with mud and dark blood. He clutched his ears with both hands, letting out broken, animal-like whimpers, his gaze vacant, his mind already shattered. Just last night, the Do Manor had been the most prestigious estate in Runan County. Your father was a rising star in the court, favored by the Emperor himself. Your mother was gentle and graceful. Your sister, Do Yuyong, was a celebrated beauty, praised across the province. And you, Do Chang'en, were the family's only son, the bright hope of the future. Life was golden, glorious, blazing like oil on fire, petals on silk. The shift began 3 days ago, at a strange and silent dusk. Without warning, the sky darkened as though soaked in ink. Day turned to night. The wind howled through the trees, tearing up dead leaves and branches with a scream. But what truly chilled the soul were the birds. Hundreds, thousands, crows, sparrows, even rare hawks and falcons, all driven by some invisible force. They gathered in a suffocating black mass above the Do Manor, circling endlessly, shrieking in sharp, grief-filled cries that echoed like waves of despair, crashing down on every ear, every nerve. Panic spread among the servants, whispers of doom flitting through the halls. Your father stood beneath the eaves, face ashen, forcing a calm he didn't feel as he shouted for the servants to drive off the birds. But his white-knuckled grip on the railing betrayed the storm within. You remember clearly the flash of terror in his eyes, a terror deeper than mere dread of unnatural omens. It was the look of a man being hunted by a lifelong enemy. The birds screamed through the day and into the night. Then, just as suddenly as they had come, they vanished with the dawn. A heavy silence fell, so thick it felt alive. The household exhaled in relief, believing the crisis had passed. But a far worse nightmare was only beginning. That very night, a scream tore through the stillness, raw, ragged, coming from your sister Du Yuyong's room. You and your father were the first to reach it. The moment the door burst open, a wave of noxious air hit your face. The scene inside froze your blood. Your sister stood barefoot on the cold floor, her once stunning features twisted in horror. Her bed, her vanity, even the ceiling all covered in snakes. Green ones, black ones, speckled ones thick as your arm, thin as chopsticks, slithering, coiling, writhing. Their cold scales shimmered under candlelight, hissing in eerie unison. But they didn't strike, not yet. They just stared, unblinking, with vertical pupils locked onto your sister like spectators savoring a dying animal's final struggle. "Dad! Chang'en! Help me!" Your sister screamed, her voice breaking with terror. Your father's eyes went wild. He drew his sword and charged, but the moment he stepped across the threshold, something changed. A massive black serpent, thick as a wrist and coiled around the doorframe, launched itself like lightning. It wrapped around his sword hand with surgical precision. The cold, slimy contact made his entire body seize up. Then, as if triggered by some silent signal, the snakes erupted into motion. No longer just looming, they surged like a tidal wave of black death toward your sister. "No!" You and your father shouted in unison. Too late. The serpents swarmed her, wrapping around her neck, slithering into her sleeves, even forcing their way into her mouth and nostrils. Her screams were drowned in hissing and the sickening sounds of writhing, biting flesh. She struggled like a statue bound in vines, writhing in vain. The light drained from her eyes, replaced by agony and death. Within seconds, she was gone, strangled, and devoured alive right before your eyes. Your father, still ensnared by the black serpent, let out a scream that no longer sounded human. He swung his sword, slicing the snake in two. Blood sprayed across his face as he stumbled back, gasping for air, eyes wild with pain and something else. A cursed clarity, a realization he could no longer deny. "Retribution, it's come," he muttered, voice shaking like a leaf in the autumn wind. Your sister's death was just the beginning, a floodgate to hell thrown wide open. That night, the Dome Manor became a serpent's nest. From cracks in the rock garden, from the ancient well in the courtyard, even from hidden gaps in the ceiling beams, snakes poured out in endless waves, all drawn by the scent of doe blood. The servants scattered in panic, many bitten, many poisoned. Their screams pierced the night like knives. Your mother, shielded by desperate guards, managed to retreat with you and your father to the main hall, the sturdiest part of the manor. But the snakes found their way in anyway, just before dawn, with a deafening crash. The carved wooden doors cracked open not from outside force, but from the sheer weight and pressure of countless serpents coiling and pressing against them. The tide burst through. The guards fought back with blades and torches, slicing and burning dozens of snakes. The air filled with smoke, scorched scales, and blood. But the serpents kept coming. In the chaos, a slender green snake, no thicker than a bamboo leaf, slipped through the legs of the fighting men like a ghost, silently. It crept toward your trembling mother, who was clutching you tightly. It struck in a blink, a flash of green darting into your mother's slightly parted ear. "Ah!" She let out a short, piercing scream, her body convulsing violently. She clawed at her ears and cheeks, tearing open bloody gouges. Her eyes bulged with unbearable pain and fear. In mere seconds, her movements froze. Her pupils dilated, and she collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. Her face still wore that final, soul-shaking expression. The green snake slid back out her other ear, its icy eyes flicking over you and your father before vanishing into the flood of serpents. Her death broke him, completely. The guards were either dead or dying. The snakes retreated, for now, leaving behind a scene from hell. Blood, death, silence. You held your mother's body, feeling the last warmth seep away, overwhelmed by grief so vast it stole your breath. You looked at your father, the once proud, iron-willed man now reduced to a broken heap. He mumbled to himself, over and over. "It's retribution I brought this on us. Dad," you shouted, voice hoarse like sandpaper. "What kind of retribution? What did our family do?" He flinched, his empty eyes locked onto you, filled with pain, remorse, and the hollow relief of a man surrendering to truth. He tried to stand, then collapsed again. His eyes never left yours. His lips trembled. He was on the brink of confessing a secret too heavy for any soul to bear. "Chang'un," he rasped, his voice dry as a broken bellows. "It was me! It was me who brought this curse upon us! It's the blood debt our ancestors left behind!" He clawed at his chest as if something weighed 1,000 pounds there. 20 years ago, when I first entered public office, I was weak, desperate to curry favor with the magistrate of Runan, Wang Xian. He wanted to build a summer estate on Mount Qisha, north of the city, a place renowned for its feng shui. But that land, it was the pit of 10,000 serpents, the sacred ground where snakekind had lived and bred for generations. His eyes glazed over with madness and terror. When the magistrate gives an order, who dares disobey? The deadline was tight. Digging, smoking, and poison, they were all too slow. There were just too many snakes. They hid in endless tunnels, deep underground. Wang Xian, that beast, he ordered boiling water to be poured into every entrance we could find. His voice rose to a blood-chilling scream. Boiling water, pouring down like a waterfall. I was there, supervising. I heard it, the sound from beneath the earth. The screams, snakes, writhing, boiling alive, their death cries cursing us. The whole valley reeked of burned flesh. It was hell, pure hell. He broke into violent coughing, as if coughing up his lungs. His face twisted in agony, as if the horrors of that day played out before his eyes again. We all but wiped out the snakes there, in the cruelest way possible. His voice dropped to a whisper soaked in guilt. Not long after, Wang Xian died suddenly, horribly. I thought it was just karma, heaven's punishment. But over the years, our family, fewer and fewer sons were born. Your grandfather, your uncles, they died mysteriously. And now, Yu Yang, your mother. He choked again, tears streaming down his face. They've come back! The snake spirits! They're here for revenge! They want the Du bloodline wiped out. Not a single one left alive. At the exact moment your father shouted the words, "Wipe out the bloodline," another sudden change erupted. From the shadowed rafters above his head, a slender, nearly translucent white figure shot down like an arrow loosed from its bow. It moved so fast, it defied human reaction. All you saw was a fleeting blur. Thwack! A soft yet gut-wrenching sound rang out. Your father's voice cut off instantly. His body went rigid, eyes wide in disbelief, fixed on something ahead as if witnessing the most terrifying sight in the world. A tiny red dot appeared between his brows, rapidly expanding. Blood mixed with streaks of milky white fluid began to trickle down. A snake, pure white and gleaming like jade, no thicker than a pinky and about a foot long, was embedded headfirst in his forehead. Its tail still coiled around the rafter, its body like a living spear. Your father let out a raspy, gurgling noise. His body convulsed once, twice. The light faded from his eyes, replaced by absolute terror and a flicker of relieved confusion. Then, he collapsed with a heavy thud, sending a splash of blood across the floor. The gleaming white snake slowly pulled itself out of the hole in his brow, its vertical pupils cold and emotionless as it glanced down at his corpse. Then it turned to you, cold, utterly cold. It wasn't the chill of flesh, but something deeper. A soul-crushing stare, full of ancient hatred and death. Your blood turned to ice. It felt like an invisible hand had clenched your heart, freezing it mid-beat. Grief, terror, and a boiling hatred. Hatred for Wang Xian, for fate, for the very serpent in front of you all surged through your body like a raging flood, threatening to rip you apart from within. "Father," you cried, a guttural roar bursting from your throat, tears streaming down your face, mingling with the rain. Your family, your entire world, wiped out in one night. And at the root of it all, a massacre your father had taken part in 20 years ago. A slaughter that had defied all humanity. Rage boiled in your chest like molten lava, scorching your mind. You lunged for the sword your father had dropped, grabbing it from the blood-soaked floor. You pointed the tip at the jade-white serpent and screamed, hoarse and shaking. "Demon! Come on! Kill me! Do it! Isn't that what you want? To end the Dew family once and for all? Come on, then!" The glowing serpent hovered silently in the air, barely a yard away. It didn't attack. It simply stared at you with those impossibly cold vertical pupils, watching you as one might watch a struggling insect. There was no bloodlust in its eyes, only an ancient, suffocating aura of death. Your screams echoed hollow and powerless in the face of that stare. Despair swept over you again like an icy tide. The sword in your hand trembled not from fear, but from a crushing, bone-deep helplessness. What use was a human blade against something so far beyond mortal comprehension? Then, a voice echoed directly inside your mind, low, raspy, like 1,000 snakes hissing in unison. Cold, stripped of any human feeling. Anger, despair, the fear and regret in Do Mingyuan's final breath was 100 times more delicious than your rage. Your entire body jolted. You stared at the white snake in disbelief. Was it speaking? Inside your mind? Wipe out your bloodline? The voice sneered. That's far too merciful. What I want is for the Do bloodline to descend generation after generation into an abyss of fear. To suffer without death as an escape. Just like my children, who writhed and screamed in boiling water. The voice stabbed into your soul like frozen needles, and in that instant, you finally understood the torment and hatred behind your father's tale. This wasn't revenge. This was retribution beyond death. You, the last of the Dew blood, the snake's voice declared, cold as frost. Tremble, struggle. I'll watch you rot, piece by piece, between nightmares and venom. Your descendants will bear this curse forever, living under the shadow of the snake until your blood runs dry and your souls know no peace. The words seared into your mind, like a brand more damning than death itself. With its curse delivered, the white serpent gave a flick of its body and vanished, like air itself had absorbed it. The serpents clinging to the rafters and walls began to recede like a tide, leaving only chaos in their wake, stench, blood, and the heavy presence of death. The great Do manor was now silent, save for you, the last one left alive. You held your mother's corpse in your arms, eyes fixed on the gruesome hole in your father's forehead. Your sister's death replayed in your mind on an endless loop. Your home was gone. Your enemy, that faceless serpent spirit. All of this was the karmic backlash of a massacre committed 20 years ago. The snake spirit's curse clung to your soul like a maggot to bone. Die? No, you couldn't die. Not yet. The Dew family's blood debt remained unpaid. That curse must be broken. If you survived only to pass it on to your children, your descendants would live in eternal torment. That was a fate worse than death. A thought, mad and clear as lightning, split through the fog of your mind. Go to Mount Tisha. Go to the pit of 10,000 serpents. Find that spirit. It wanted to curse you? Then face it. Either it killed you and ended the Do bloodline right then and there, or you would confront it. Trade whatever it took. Cut this cursed chain at the root. Survival and duty burned away your fear. Gently, you laid your mother's body down. Then, facing where your parents and sister lay, you bowed 3 times, each knock of your forehead against the bloodied ground sounding dull, resolute. When you lifted your head again, Only fire remained in your eyes. You picked up your father's bloodied sword, staggered to your feet, and charged out of the ruined manor into the blood-soaked downpour outside. The rain smelled of rust, of iron. You didn't care. You ran, full speed, toward Mount Chisia to the north. The mountain paths were muddy and treacherous. The rain blinded you. You lost count of how many times you fell. Mud and blood, yours or your family's, you didn't know. You were soaked, filthy, broken. At last, you reached the pit of 10,000 serpents, now just a massive, vine-covered gorge deep in Mount Keisha's forest. Even after 20 years, the air near the gorge still felt damp, cold, and wrong. A foul, ancient scent hung in the air, older and deeper than the blood reek in your manor. The gorge yawned like the maw of some colossal beast, black and bottomless. You took a deep breath. The cold, metallic air burned your lungs, made you gag. You tightened your grip on the sword, not as a weapon, but as your last crutch. Then, without hesitation, you stepped into the darkness that had swallowed your family's fate whole. The cave was far bigger and more twisted than you imagined. Jagged rocks loomed in every direction. Light was scarce, the only illumination coming from cracks in the ceiling that let in faint slivers of gray. Dust floated in the beams. The ground beneath your feet was slick, with moss and old, slick snake skins, layered so thick they squished underfoot. The foul scent grew thicker, almost tangible. Silence, complete and total. No bugs, no wind, just your breath, your heartbeat, and the wet slap of your boots echoing off the stone walls, jarring in the oppressive stillness. You followed the main path, deeper and deeper toward the heart of the mountain. The farther you walked, the colder it got. The air turned thick with damp. Strange patches of moss appeared along the walls, faintly glowing with phosphorescence. Their light cast grotesque shadows across the rocks like twisted ghosts dancing in the dark. You walked on until the tunnel suddenly opened up into a massive underground cavern. The sight before you stole your breath. In the center of the cavern was a vast, bottomless pool of ink-black water. It was still, unnaturally still, radiating a chill so deep it bit into your bones. Surrounding the pool was a dense, layered sea of bone-white skeletons. Most were snakes, thick, thin, coiled, shattered, piled like mountains. A sea of bones, and on the edges scattered human remains. Blackened by time, some still bore the marks of snake bites, skulls wrapped in the memory of death. This was it, the massacre site, the hell your father had described. The place where boiling water had turned the Serpent clan into corpses, stacked like logs. And the human bones? Likely the killers who'd returned only to be hunted down in turn. Wang Xian. His men? The visual horror layered with your father's 20-year-old confession made your stomach twist. You stumbled to the stone wall and vomited. And then, a voice exploded in your mind. Colder, clearer, louder than ever. The cave itself seemed to hum with it. You dare enter this sacred grave, carrying the filthy blood of the Doe family? The voice stabbed into your soul like a tangible ice spike, flooding you with pain and vertigo. You forced your head up. At the center of the still, black pool, the water rose silently. The jade-white serpent spirit slowly emerged from the inky depths. Its body looked carved from the purest cold jade, glowing faintly with a spectral chill. But what shook you more was what happened. As it rose, the phosphorescent moss on the cave ceiling flared with sudden brightness, and their light gathered to cast a massive, writhing serpent shadow on the wall behind it. The shadow spanned half the cavern wall, with twin crimson eyes burning like blood-red moons, locked directly on you. An ancient, overwhelming aura of death and hatred descended upon you like a mountain. Your knees buckled. Your very soul wailed in agony. Was this the true form of the serpent's spirit, or a manifestation of all the vengeful souls of the slaughtered snakes? Before this pressure, you were nothing but dust. I came to end this. You screamed with every ounce of strength you had left, trying to push back against the crushing weight. But in the vast cave, your voice trembled, frail and faint. End it? The serpent spirit's voice oozed mockery. It hovered above the pool, its jade-white body gleaming with an eerie, sacred light. Sacred in the way death is. With you? A dying insect? Or with that piece of rusted iron stained with your father's filthy blood? It raised its head slightly, and the enormous shadow on the cave wall followed suit. The burning red eyes stared down at you. Feel the despair, remnant of the Doe clan. Feel the eternal curse born from your ancestors' boundless sin. This is only the beginning. As it spoke, the sea of bones began to stir. Countless white snake skeletons started to clatter, their hollow sockets flickering with ghostly green fire. The black water rippled, as if something colossal stirred beneath its surface. A wave of hatred and death 100 times stronger than before crashed over you, filled with icy madness and whispering voices. Your vision blurred. Your ears rang with the death cries of snakes, the bubbling of boiling water, and the final screams of your father, sister, and mother. Hallucinations and reality intertwined. Terror gripped your throat like a freezing hand. You saw giant serpents made of bones lunging at you, rotting hands rising from the pool. Your father's bleeding forehead wound expanding in your sight. The curse was taking hold. It wanted to destroy your mind right here, in the place of ancestral sin. No, you roared, clutching your head in agony, teetering on the brink of mental collapse. Despair, like the cold water of the pool, threatened to drown you. Was this how it ended? Crushed by fear, like your father, dooming the Doe bloodline to eternal torment? Then, in the very last moment before your mind broke, flashes surged through your memory, your mother's terrified eyes before death, your sister's hopeless cries as the snakes consumed her, your father's voice trembling with guilt and fear as he described the boiling water. Like a final lightning bolt, these images sliced through the chaos in your head. No! You couldn't break. The Dew family's blood debt had to be paid. The curse had to end with you, no matter the cost. A thought more insane and final than charging into the serpent pit erupted in your mind like a volcano. Not begging, not fighting, but bargaining a sacrifice of yourself. With your last shred of will, you snapped your head up, bloodshot eyes locked onto the serpent spirit above the pool. You screamed, using every ounce of strength, a declaration that shook the entire cavern. I want to make a deal. Your voice boomed through the emptiness, cutting through the hateful whispers and the clattering bones. The jade-white serpent stilled. The massive crimson shadow flickered. Was that surprise? The mountain-crushing pressure around you stalled, just slightly. A deal? The serpent spirit's voice echoed in your mind again. This time, there was less mockery. More curiosity. You a dying remnant, cursed for eternity. What could you possibly offer? What gives you the right? Its vertical pupils locked onto you, assessing you like some curious, dangerous toy. You knew this was it. Your only chance, life or death, curse or salvation. You gritted your teeth against the soul-ripping pain and stood tall. Your voice, cracked and hoarse with tension and desperation, rang out clear. I am the last of the Dew bloodline. I stepped into this pit of serpents willingly, and I'm willing to pay any price to break this cursed cycle. You hurled your sword against the stone wall, It struck with a metallic crack and snapped in two. The gesture made clear. You had abandoned all hope of fighting. Any price? The serpent's voice was laced with dark amusement. Its white body shifted slightly. The ripples followed. Even your life? That's cheap. Pain and fear, that's the true offering. Death is mercy. Not just my life, you screamed, veins pulsing at your temples. Death is too easy. Pain and fear, you've already had it. My father died in terror and regret. My sister was devoured alive in despair. My mother had a snake crawl into her ear. Haven't you had enough? Must this curse go on, torturing innocent descendants forever? Is this revenge an endless cycle of suffering? Just like your people faced in the boiling water, you gasped for air. The emotional surge making your vision blur. But you stood your ground, staring straight into the serpent's cold eyes. Then, you threw down your final, maddest gamble. I know what you want. You want the Doe bloodline to live in fear forever. You want hatred to burn eternally. Fine. Take me. Take my life. Take my senses. Take the things I value most. In exchange. You took a deep breath, the air sharp as blades against your throat. Then, with all your might, you shouted each word with brutal clarity. Take my eye! With it, end the curse on the Doe bloodline. With it, end the cycle of hatred in my generation. My eye will remain here forever, witness to the sea of bones, witness to the Doe family's sin. I will live the rest of my life with the pain and loss of it. That is my offering. Is it enough? Silence. Total silence fell over the cavern. The ripples stopped, the bones stilled. Even the giant red serpent shadow froze, as if your words had locked time in place. The serpent spirit hung in the air, unmoving, its icy eyes truly, for the first time, focused on your face. No longer blank or hateful, now filled with astonishment, scrutiny, and something shaken, something unspoken. Your eye? The cold voice echoed again, now heavy, solemn. You would sacrifice your eye? Yes. You answered without hesitation, firm and clear, voice trembling with fierce resolve. Left or right, take whichever. Just promise that after me, whether the Doe bloodline dies or endures, this curse ends. Let this eye bear the wrath of 10,000 serpents forever. You raised a trembling hand, pointing to your bloodshot madness-filled left eye. The gesture made it unmistakably clear this was no bluff. You were ready, truly ready. The serpent's spirit was silent. The aura of hatred and death around it began to recede, like a tide withdrawing. The massive shadow on the cavern wall blurred, then faded. The black pool stilled once more. The bones fell silent. Only the white serpent remained, suspended in the pale glow, gleaming with a cold, unnatural light. Time seemed frozen. Every second stretched into eternity. You could hear your heart pounding like a war drum, blood roaring in your ears. Finally, the serpent moved. It glided toward you, slow, graceful, silent as if swimming through air. The chill of death wrapped around you again, stronger, sharper, and more focused. It stopped 3 feet away, floating in front of you. Its icy pupils met your bloodshot, desperate left eye, so close they nearly touched. One eye. The voice whispered directly into your mind. Not grand, not mocking, but soft. Cold as ever, but laced now with something else. Something strange, complicated. To end the hatred, to end the chain. It tilted its head slightly, as if pondering or perhaps verifying whether the madness in your eyes, the willingness to sever fate at all costs, was real. Its icy tongue flicked out, nearly brushing your cheek, carrying a chill that pierced straight to the bone. An interesting offering, it said slowly, its tone unreadable. Pain, mutilation, eternal witness. This price pleases me more than death. Your heart lodged in your throat. You held your breath as the scales of life and death tipped back and forth. Very well. The serpent spirit's voice rang out, sudden and cold as steel final, like a judge's gavel. The pact is sealed. And before you could react, before you could even blink, the white serpent's body snapped taut, transforming into a white flash too fast for the eye to follow. There was no pain, only a strange, alien sensation, as if a thread-thin icicle had pierced your left eye at a speed beyond all human perception. Ugh. You managed only a short, muffled groan before your vision went dark on one side. Your left eye was swallowed by a thick, absolute blackness. There was no burst of blood as you'd expected, just a strange, gaping sense of something being completely, utterly removed. You could feel it, something cold, slick, and brimming with will had taken up residence in your left eye socket, replacing what once was yours. It happened impossibly fast. By the time your mind broke free from the sensation of violation, the white serpent had already drifted back to the edge of the dark pool. It still gleamed like flawless jade. But now, near what would be its brow, if snakes had such a thing, a tiny, swirling black dot had formed, like a vortex, exuding an eerie pull. It was your pupil. Your left eye, and within your own left socket only an empty void remained, smooth, cold, black as the abyss. No blood, no wound. As if the eye had never existed. As if some supernatural force had erased it entirely. All that remained was a hollow marking the pact, marking the price. A wave of unspeakable cold, numbness, and utter void flowed from that hollow, spreading down your side. The pact was complete. The serpent's spirit hovered near the pool's edge. Its head, now marked with your pupil, turned slightly, as if looking at the mountain of pale bones or beyond the rock walls, into some unseen void. The immense rage and destructive aura it once exuded began to still, soothed by invisible forces, settling into something deeper, older, eternal. Do Chang'en. Its voice echoed once more in your remaining mind. Still cold, but no longer steeped in hatred. Now it carried the distant neutrality of a pact fulfilled. The pact is sealed. From this day forth, the curse upon the Doe bloodline ends. The hatred of 10,000 snakes shall be bound within your left eye for eternity. Now go. Leave, with your brokenness and your witness. With that, the white figure gave you one last look, then slowly sank into the ink-black pool and vanished. Only faint ripples remained, quickly fading. Silence returned to the cavern. Only the glowing moss pulsed faintly like ghostly flames, flickering across the sea of bones and your shadowed hollow eye. Was it over? Truly over? Was the curse broken? You raised your hand, trembling, stared at your intact palm with your right eye, then gently touched the smooth, empty left socket. No pain, only cold. Utter, penetrating cold. And a void that would forever remind you of the price paid. A wave of exhaustion crashed over you. Your knees gave out, and you collapsed onto the slick, wet stone floor, gasping for air. Shivers ran through your body survivor's tremors. You forced yourself up, casting one final glance at the silent pool and the sea of bones. You engraved this hellscape into your soul alongside the cold emptiness of your left eye. Then, staggering, smeared with filth and blood, some yours, some your family's, you began walking, step by, agonizing, step out of the serpent's tomb, bearing the hollow that marked the end and the price. As you emerged from the ravine of Mount Kisia, daylight had fully returned. The strange blood rain that had lasted for days had ceased at some unknown hour. The sky above shone with a piercing, almost painful blue. Sunlight poured down unfiltered, warming the soaked forest, chasing away the gloom and stench of blood. Birds chirped on the branches, clear and bright. Life returned. Light, warmth, breath. But standing beneath the sun, you felt nothing. The world on the left side of your body was eternally cold, absolutely dark. Your right eye saw the radiant sun and lush green forest. Your left side felt only void. The contrast was cruel, unbearable. The dissonance made your head spin. Nausea surged. You gripped a cold rock for balance, retching, but nothing came out. Only bitterness and cold spread through your chest. This was the price. The price you paid to end your family's curse. You would carry this hollowness and chill for the rest of your life. You turned one last time to the gorge behind you, a beast's open mouth where the Dew clan's sins were buried, where the bones of 10,000 snakes lay, where your left eye would remain forever. Then you turned around, with your single remaining eye. You looked out at Runan County mist rising from the land, still stained with blood and sorrow. The path ahead was shrouded. Your home was gone. But you, Do Chang'un, were the last of your bloodline, and the survivor who had ended the curse. You took a heavy, unsteady step down the muddy trail, then another, and another, toward the mountain's base, toward the unknown future. Sunlight lit half your blood-stained pale face, illuminating the cold, deep hollow that marked your pact and redemption. The wind swept past, carrying the scent of life, returning to the land, and, faintly, eternally, the chill from deep underground.